What's going on, y'all? Um, sorry, we had a little bit of a delay on this because I was planning to go live on the Maroon and White Daily YouTube account, which is where we're going to start shifting some of this content. And turned out, I forgot you have to uh, request to go live, so that's a process. So we'll get back to that next week. But for now, glad you guys are joining me on this channel. As long as we can be on this channel, we will, like I said, transition over to the Maroon and White Daily YouTube account. So if you guys don't mind, go over there and subscribe to that channel. I might stop by on here from time to time. If you guys like some music stuff, I might drop some music stuff on here from time to time. But with the new job, they've requested I move Mississippi State content over to Maroon and White Daily. So I'm most definitely going to comply with that and bring you some more content over the Maroon and White Daily channel. And we'll try to have some more podcasts and down the road, some podcasts, some conversations with players on the YouTube channel. We're going to bring you some good content on that channel as time goes on. So again, make sure you're subscribed to the Maroon and White Daily YouTube account. If you can't find it, I tweeted it out on my Twitter account. So you can go click that link and subscribe to that. But otherwise, I really appreciate you guys' support here on this channel, building this up like we have over the last 2 years. It's been a fun ride over here. We'll continue this content, but we're just going to move it over to Maroon and White Daily. So I'd appreciate your support over there as well as we start to take that content over there. So moving on from that, I appreciate you guys joining me tonight. It's been a while since we've been on here. It's been a couple of weeks, and a whole lot has happened for Mississippi State sports during that time. Specifically on the basketball front, the men and women have gotten things rolling on the basketball court. And last week, it was a really busy week. We saw 5 basketball games between Mississippi State's men and women, and some mixed results. The women had a really, really good week. The men had a really, really bad week. And, I can't really explain why that is, because the women had especially 2 difficult games, then another game where you're on the road and you were coming off of a really high-end win where you're really emotional off that victory against LSU, and you go to Kentucky, one of the worst teams in the league, and you were in position to lose that game. But Mississippi State won it, and we'll dig into that. I'm going to start with the men, though. And the Bulldogs are now 14-8 on the season, 3-6 in conference play. And listen, they have played a juggernaut of a schedule in SEC play. The South Carolina game at the beginning of the schedule was not one that everybody was looking at and saying, this is going to be a really difficult game preseason. But as you get closer, you start to realize this is a better South Carolina team. And then you go up there and you had a chance to win that ball game. You weren't able to get it. You look back at that game, and that was a big missed opportunity for Mississippi State. But that was also a South Carolina team that now in hindsight is going to compete for the SEC championship this year. You lost that game 68-62. You left a lot of opportunities on the table, and you weren't able to win it. But in hindsight, that was a really difficult game, and you follow that up by hosting number 5 Tennessee. So looking at this schedule in the first 9 games, and you're at the halfway point of the season at this point, Mississippi State has played 9 games. 8 of those ball games are quad 1 games for Mississippi State. And I can't explain how difficult the schedule setup was for Mississippi State in the first half of the schedule. And you obviously came out of it not on top, obviously, but you got some big wins in here with Tennessee and Auburn. Those games are going to be big all the way to the end. Those are going to be quad 1 games for Mississippi State, unless Auburn and Tennessee just completely falter down the stretch. Those are going to be quad 1 wins for State to the very end. So nobody can take those games away from Mississippi State. It's the South Carolina game, the Alabama game at home. Florida game, Florida controlled that from start to finish, but the State just wasn't able to win it. And Ole Miss, those 3 games, I will say, were very winnable games, and Mississippi State just didn't find a way to get them. South Carolina, Alabama at home, Ole Miss on the road. All 3 of those games, the Bulldogs really needed, and they weren't able to get them. And that's the difference between 3-6 and 6-3 at this point for State. Now, the Ole Miss game earlier this week, 86 points against Ole Miss. I mean, State's defense has got to be better than that. But you look at what they did on the offensive side of the ball in the first half and the turnovers that they had, and can just continuously giving Ole Miss points and putting up empty possessions. Those were huge down the stretch. And I know a lot of people pointed to Cam Matthews missing free throws in that last possession. And listen, if he makes those 2 free throws, you are very likely going to overtime, but he wasn't able to make them. And it is what it is. You lost by 4 points. But I'm not going to put the game on that. And I realize that he could have erased a lot of things if State takes that to overtime and wins it there. And MSU was, starting to flip the momentum a little bit. They were scoring pretty much at will down the stretch. And you can say what you want to about the last play. It just didn't work out. But there were so many other opportunities in the game. State didn't play good enough defense. You give up 86 points, you didn't play good defense. They out-rebounded Ole Miss, I think, by 15. It was just an absolute just monster of a game rebounding. And State still lost this game. And I think turnovers was a big part of it. Failing to defend the three-point line. Some of them were good, well-defended plays. The State you just got to tip your hat. Ole Miss was shooting out of their mind in that game, but State's got to be better. And then you flip it over to Alabama and just an absolutely embarrassing loss. A team like this with this kind of veteran leadership that prides itself on defense should never have a game like this. And this was pretty much the most despicable loss, even to the Southern game. This is pretty much the most despicable loss State's had. You lost to Southern, and I still say a top 25 loss to Alabama is worse because of how it happened. You give up 99 points. You lose this game by 32. State was bad in every facet. Didn't shoot the free throws well. They shot 59% in that game. They missed, I think they were 19 to 32 or something. Let's see, what else did they do? They did not defend, obviously. Alabama shot 40-plus three-pointers in this game. And they were just firing them up every time down the floor, it seemed like. And State gave up offensive rebounds. They gave up the second chance points off those offensive rebounds. They turned the ball over at a high rate, and Alabama was able to score on them. The things that Mississippi State is not doing well right now that they could improve on and change outcomes of ball games. Free throws, that's something that you can control. State's not doing a good job at that. Turnovers, Mississippi State is turning the ball over, and they're turning it over in the backcourt at the three-point line, and it's turning into points on the other end. That's huge. It's giving away your possession, but it's also giving away points to the opposing team, and it's killer for Mississippi State. And then offensive rebounds for the other team, you're giving teams extra opportunities. They shot 80-plus shots in that game. That's too many. And, State needed to dictate the pace of the ball game. They weren't able to do that. They allowed Alabama to play at their pace. And, that's how the game turned out to be what it was. So this past week has to be a turning point moment for Mississippi State if they want to make the NCAA tournament. And I still believe 8 SEC wins gets them in. I believed that last year, and it did. But, you can argue, had they lost that SEC tournament game to Florida, they wouldn't have made it. So maybe 9 wins would have sufficed for them. I think 8 could get them in. They remain in the field. They haven't really been on the bubble for quite some time. But here's the thing, that they need 5 more wins. If you look at the rest of the schedule, 2 of those have to be Missouri and Arkansas. You cannot lose to either one of those teams. Those would be just absolutely destructive losses for their resume to the worst teams in the league. Can't lose them. So you need to win those 2 games, and then you need to win 3 more games. And I think to feel safe, you need to get to 9 wins, but I feel like they're going to be okay there. But you need to win 3 more games, and those 3 have to be between these teams: Georgia and Ole Miss at home, LSU on the road, which I think needs to be one of your wins. So let's go ahead and say LSU needs to be one of your wins too, because you need to take a road game Um, let's say A&M or LSU. So one of those two, and then you're looking for possibly another win out of South Carolina, Auburn, or Kentucky at home. Auburn does not look good right now as a win, a potential win for Mississippi State. That is a place that's very difficult to win. State plays very bad on the road, so let's go ahead and say that's a loss. So Mississippi State really needs to find ways to win Georgia, Ole Miss, um, Kentucky, or South Carolina at home. You need to win two or three of those. I don't think that this is dire time for Mississippi State. I don't believe that they're in a position right now where every game they have to win, but you're starting to lose those opportunities where you're going to make the tournament. So this is a huge stretch here, and it's a very manageable schedule. But the problem for Mississippi State right now is DJ Jeffries is out for God knows how long. Chris Jans doesn't know how long he's going to be out. Was injured against Alabama, left the ball game in the first half, never returned. Looks like a knee injury, but doesn't appear to be serious. But Chris Jans said he's going to be out for a little while. So that's your best defender, and especially on the perimeter where Mississippi State has struggled to defend at times. He's been your best defender. You've lost him now for however long. Mississippi State's got to find a way to have somebody step up during that time frame that DJ Jeffries is out and, find a way to win some games here. This is a huge stretch, and I feel like Mississippi State needs to win 5 to 6 more SEC games, get to 8 or 9 wins, and they will be in the NCAA tournament. If you get to 7 wins, this feels like an NIT team. I think the threshold is 8. So, we'll see if Mississippi State's able to get that done. So, now moving to the women. The women had a absolutely monumental week, and it was, completely different from what happened with the men. So, State comes into the ball game with LSU at 3-3 in the league. And I came into last week saying 2 wins would be great for Mississippi State if they could get Kentucky. The A&M game was the real big game for Mississippi State. I'll admit to you right now, I just did not think Mississippi State could beat LSU. Not a great matchup for them for what we've seen so far. Angel Reese, you felt like was going to be able to neutralize Jessica Carter. It was going to be tough to stop her in the paint too. Mississippi State was going to have some really great guard play, and you're going up against a team that's got great guard play. LSU was going to have to play badly. State was going to have to play really good. So I went in that game. It really felt like a loss, but getting over that hump, the back half of the schedule presented a lot of opportunities for Mississippi State. Well, then State goes and steals this game against LSU, and just outplayed LSU in just about every facet. I thought that it was a well-defended ball game. 72 points against a team that scores 90-plus was amazing. State really defended well. It was well coached by Sam Purcell, well scouted by Gabe Lazo, his assistant coach, and I thought the players played their guts out in that ball game in a whiteout in front of 9,000. Great atmosphere, great crowd. State wins at 77-73. And you saw, Jessica Carter didn't have a big game, which we felt like was a possibility. Other players had to step up, and they did. Jerkayla Jordan was fantastic. She scored, I think, 13 points in the third quarter to really get Mississippi State going in that ball game. She had over 20 points in the game. Miracle Shepherd was outstanding off the bench, was the SEC Freshman of the Week. Jerkayla Jordan, Player of the Week. Darian Rogers was huge off the bench, hit some really big shots, and State was able to win that ball game. So then you go to Kentucky, and this is the worst team in the league. Kentucky, Mississippi State coming off a big game, a little bit of a tired leg situation. It seemed like, it was almost like a hangover for him in this game. And Sam Purcell told me after the game he felt like this was going to happen coming into the game, that the shoot around wasn't great, practices weren't great. He gave them the day off the next day to kind of give them some rest. So Wednesday they had practice, Thursday they shoot around, and they just did not look good in this game. We're down by 6 points with a minute left, 0 for 9 from 3 for Mississippi State, and they were looking down the barrel of a terrible loss to a team that's ranked 167th in the net. And the Bulldogs were able to hit 3 3-pointers in 1 minute. Darian Rogers got the first one. DeBrisha Poe hit 2 in the matter of 14 seconds. And Mississippi State takes the lead. Kentucky gets the score right at the buzzer and was able to send it to overtime, but the Bulldogs were too much in overtime and able to pull that one out. DeBrisha Poe was really the hero in this one. So that's 4 different players that really stepped up to the plate now in 2 games to help you win the ball game. 77-74 in overtime. State survives a game. And now you're looking to just find a way. And that was Sam Purcell's word to me when I talked to him on Wednesday about this game. And his words were, we just got to find a way. He knew his team was going to be tired. This is 3 games in 6 days. Mississippi State gets down 11-2 in this ball game in the first quarter. And I thought from then on, they call a timeout. And from then on was just the tougher team. And this is a really talented A&M team. They were 11-1 at home. Probably was going to be the second or third toughest home away game Mississippi State plays this year when you consider the talent that they have, how good they've been at home, right there with Ole Miss and South Carolina with the toughest road games they'll have this year. State was outstanding in the second half. Darian Rogers, again, 18 points in this game, hit 4 3-pointers, was so big in the ball game. And Aaron Barnum, what about her in the second half? Fourth quarter, she scores 14 points, 20 in the ball game. It was her highest scoring point total as a Bulldog. And State pulls away in the fourth quarter, 74-63. Huge win for Mississippi State. And they move now to 19-5 on the season, looking to get to 20 wins, 25 games in the year. Just an excellent job again by Sam Purcell. And they're now 7-2 in road games, 10-2 away from Humphrey Coliseum. That's going to look really good on a resume. 6-3 in SEC play are the Bulldogs, so they are in really, really good shape. Another team that I think 8 or 9 wins gets them in, but they're now pushing for seeding. I mean, you're past the point. Last year at this point, you were just trying to find a way to get in the tournament. At this point, you're trying to push yourself up the ladder and potentially get into that top 4 seed range. The State's going to have to do a lot of work here in the back end to get there, but it's not outside the realm of possibility. You look at this schedule here, 2 big games this week at home, very winnable. Georgia, second to worst team in the league. They just beat Kentucky to kind of take over them and push Kentucky to the bottom. Have to win that game, have to win Sunday against Florida. You win those 2 games, you're sitting there at 8-3 in the league, heading to Ole Miss. Now, that is a really big game for you there on Sunday of next week, and you have basically a whole week to prepare for that. You got the win at home against the Rebels. You really need to get that one, and then you're at 9-3, and with Kentucky coming to town, Missouri coming to town, very winnable, and then 2 road games at Alabama and Auburn. State can win every single game on the schedule the rest of the way, but it's going to be difficult. Road games at Ole Miss, Alabama, and Auburn are not going to be easy. And then, just not stubbing your toe against the other teams. But, the teams you get at home are bottom half of the league. State's got a chance here to really build an impressive resume and push for a top 4 seed. And that's going to be the goal here, is to, possibly have 12, 13 wins in conference play. That's what you're looking for. You're going to be in really good shape to possibly get that seed. So coming up on Thursday, Georgia at home, Sunday, Florida at home, 2 big home games this week, a chance for fans to come check them out. And the men, same thing. On Wednesday, you have a big game against Georgia. That is a must-win for them. So make sure you guys are getting your tickets. I know the student section is already sold out for the Georgia game for the men. So should be a decent crowd there. Should be a good crowd for the women as well. I want to remind you guys, if you want to send in some questions, get them in. A little lighter crowd tonight than what we have in here, just because, I was kind of last minute, came in here and said we were going to be doing some work here on this YouTube channel, but that's okay. So if you guys got them in, go ahead. We'll start with Kobe Walker. Hey, Robbie, glad you're back. Good to be back, Kobe. Who are some players to watch out for this season in baseball? Well, obviously you got the guys that everybody knows about: Hunter Hines, Dakota Jordan, two All-American type players. They're going to carry your lineup, but of the players that a lot of people might not be clued in on just yet, if you haven't seen the scrimmage or been following reports or whatever, there's some guys to watch out for this year that I think are going to make a big jump, like Connor Hijack, Bryce Chance, who we saw a little bit of both of those guys. They got a chance to at times show what they can do, but for the most part, they were just in a crowded outfield. Both those guys are going to be starting this year, and I think could have a really big season for Mississippi State. So those two, especially in the outfield. Dylan Cupp is a guy that has a chance to be a superstar at shortstop, a freshman, turned down the draft. Going to be tough to keep him off the field defensively, but his bat is going to be the question right away. Can he handle SEC pitching? If not, Mississippi State's in good shape. They got David Mershon, who can play shortstop. They got Amani Larry at second base. So I really like the pieces there that they have in the middle infield. And then pitching wise, we'll see. There's a lot of guys. There's a lot of dudes, but we just haven't seen a lot of them form into their roles. It's been good to see Brooks Auger get back out there throwing, having some success in these scrimmages. He was a guy that set out last year with Tommy John surgery, and he's back. Going to be a big piece for them out of the bullpen, I think. Stone Simmons, obviously, going to be a huge piece. He's been out for the last couple of years. Went out in non-conference play 2 years ago. It's going to be big to get him back, a big piece of the back end of the bullpen. And then, the pieces that they've added out of the portal, some of the freshmen. I'm really interested in these first few non-conference games, seeing who settles into roles and who kind of emerges. I really like Cam Schulke in the back end of the bullpen, a guy that has 3 arm slots. You just don't see that very often. He can come out there and really give teams a different look. Could be a matchup guy. Could be a guy if you need a couple of outs with the bases loaded. He comes in and gives you a different look that's really tough to pick up for the opposing hitter. Not a guy that I think is going to see a lot of action 2-3 times through the order. But the first time through the order, he could be a guy that mows teams down because of that different arm slot and this different stuff that he has. He's got a little something from every arm slot that's going to make it difficult for teams to pick up on. So that's a guy I'm really excited to see in the bullpen for sure. Deshaun Rams Davis had his best game by far at Ole Miss. I agree, and he was really good. They're going to have him step up. State's got to get some more scoring options out there, and they just don't have it. I mean, if Josh Hubbard's having a bad night, they're in trouble. It just is what it is right now. Trey Fort needs to be back. Rams Davis has got to start stepping up and having some more games like he did against Ole Miss for sure. Doug Gibson, why are we so bad at free throws? I can't explain it, man. I really can't. I know Chris Jans practices it. I mean, that's something that they work on a lot. They just haven't been able to pick it up. Tolu Smith, I thought, had really made a nice turnaround coming out of the gates. 20 of 24 from the free throw line in the first few games, and just has not been able to replicate it. I can't explain it at all. Cam Matthews has never been a great free throw shooter. It's just been a struggle for this team. Nathan Hamilton, where do you think the hump ranks now in SEC arenas after the renovation? And where would you have ranked it before? It's probably, as far as, the amenities, it's probably middle of the pack to the lower half of the league, just because it's, it's behind the times. I think might have moved up a slot or two with the new renovations, but until you completely gut it out or you build a new arena, it's going to be tough to move it to the top. But one thing that I'll say about it is it's a very difficult place to play because of the crowd and the acoustics in the building, the way that it's set up. It's something that a lot of new places don't have. A lot of new places have the way the arenas are built now. They're so spacious and the noise doesn't travel the same way. And I've been in a lot of arenas where it's just not the not the same as the hump, but from a noise standpoint and an environment standpoint, when it's rocking, it's up there. It's one of the better venues to play in. So I like the new setup, but it was nothing real special, but it upgrades the hump a little bit, and there's a few other things that they can do to it. I still don't think that a lot of people disagree with me, but I still don't think that you need a new arena. I like the bones of the hump. I like how it's set up. I just think there's a lot of things that you can do to it to modernize it a little bit and make it a little better venue for you, and one that's more upper half of the league. Tom T more confident in the ladies at this point than the fellas, and that goes for the coaches too. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that the men has to prove at this point. The women um, are a little more consistent, and they've gone on the road and won games. And listen, it's a different league in the men and the women. This is a much more difficult conference to win in right now on the men's side of things. It's a lot easier to go to Texas A&M on the women's side and win that game, which is one of the tougher places to play right now. It's a lot tougher to win on the men's side at a place lower half of the league than it is with the women. So yeah, that's one thing to consider. Is just the schedule has been such a gauntlet for Mississippi State, but they've got to win road games. They've got to win a couple of road games here at the bottom half of the schedule to get in the tournament. I think they need a couple of road wins to make it. Daniel Moore, can you review the women's basketball class for next year? Sure. Let me bring that up because I need to be a little more seasoned on it. I haven't looked at the class in a while. Sorry, I wasn't prepared for that. I apologize. And I should be because I actually cover it. But yeah, so obviously Rocio Jimenez is already on campus, and we've talked about her a little bit. She is a player that was kind of like a under the radar find for Gabe Lazo. She's a Dominican player that just picked up basketball like a couple of years ago, was on the Dominican national team last year, and was the youngest player on the team. And she's 6'7". She's got skill for that size, and I don't want to put too much pressure on her, but I really do see a lot of Tierra McCowan in the early stages of her career. Now she's still behind where Tierra was because Tierra had been playing basketball for a while, but just the raw outlook of her, the shell of Rocio Jimenez, I see some Tierra McCowan. I see some monster nights, 20 and 20 nights, if she puts it together. The issue that you have right now with Rocio is she just went down with a knee injury when she first got here. And that's the problem, is how is she going to recover from that? And this was supposed to be really good for her in that she was going to have a chance to learn under Jessica Carter, learn under Montague and some players like that, and just become a better player this year. And she has been able to learn some things, but she hasn't gotten that hands-on experience, and that's what's tough there. Also in the class, Shakira Edwards out of Florida, another Florida player, a player that is going to be, to me, one that can really facilitate things for you, and she's going to be tough too, I think. She is a double type player, 5'10", but one that can go in there and get a rebound for you. I see, a lot of athleticism in her. She's another prospect that's really raw. So not one that, right away, I think she can come in and make an impact, a lot like Miracle Shepherd. One player that I think can is Taj Bloom if she recovers from her injury that happened a couple of years ago, ACL. She's been getting back, and she's got a lot about her that I like, and was going to be one of the top prospects in the country. and still is. I mean, she's a top 50 prospect, but I think that the big thing for her is getting acclimated, getting here. She's a big size kid, 6'3", um, can shoot it. I think she can help Mississippi State. So we'll see how she adjusts to it. And then Anisha Carrier coming from Gulfport out of Harrison Central, long athlete, another raw prospect, but one that, over time could really help Mississippi State rebounding and scoring in the low post. This is a class that I think is just it's really kind of developmental in a lot of ways. The state's still going to go to the portal and get some players, but there's a lot of potential in this class from just pure athleticism and size. So, I like this group. It's the top 25 signing class 2 years in a row for Sam Purcell. All right. Wyatt Funderburk would be a great time to get Keyshawn Murphy back if DJ is out for the foreseeable future. I agree, and they need him back badly. And he's working his way back. Just is one of those situations where he leaves the team, and now he decides he wants to come back, and Chris Jans isn't going to let him just step back in. So he's had to work his way back up into good graces for Chris Jans and company, and he was dressed out with the team for the first time in a while. Did that against Alabama. So it appears he's close. How close, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be, him playing on Wednesday or what, but it looks like he is close to getting back out on the court. And that's big for Mississippi State. They got to have a guy like that to score. And they just don't have enough options right now offensively. And the defense being what it is, you kind of need to score at this point and try to keep pace with some of these teams, which they did against Ole Miss. But the inconsistencies there is kind of the issue. Heath Johnson is Jan's potentially a top 5 coach in the SEC. I think so. I really like Chris Jans as a coach. I think in game he's a really good coach. He's a guy that coaches hard, so he's going to be an old school guy, old school coach that I believe gets the best out of his players more often than not. He's just got to continue to win. I mean, and doing it with last year's team, I think, says it all. Like you can talk about this year, and right now, State obviously is not living up to expectations, but I think we forget just how difficult it was for him to win with that team last year. And you look at a lot of those players are back. I mean, that in itself, that kind of tells you how difficult it was. So you can't say enough about the job that he did last year. I think he's a great coach. Just there's a few things that Mississippi State's got to improve on to get back to the tournament this year. Richard Neal is Pico back this season. He is Pico. Khan is back, and I'm not sure exactly when he'll be 100%, but I believe he's been throwing some. So I don't know what the full extent of that injury was, but it obviously wasn't a full Tommy John or whatever, because the time frame on the surgery just doesn't make sense on him getting back this quickly. But it's obviously huge news for Mississippi State. If he's back, it's a left-handed pitcher that is back in your pitching rotation in some form or fashion. The bodies are there for Mississippi State. They have a lot of good quality guys. They just got to find a way to improve tremendously off of last year. Bryce Hall, does Jans hit the portal even harder next year? Yeah, he's got to. The high school class is not going to be very large. They're going to be losing some guys. This is definitely going to be a pretty big turnover out of the portal, I believe. And, they got to be better out of the portal. They haven't hit it at an extremely high rate. And, I think we've seen a pretty good output from Jimmy Bell. I mean, he did a really good job in non-conference and hasn't been great in conference play, but he's obviously helped Mississippi State out. So I mean, it's hard. He's done his job. He was brought in to be a backup center, and I think he's done a good job of being a backup center. And when his number was called, he really came forward. So I really just yeah I think he just needs a really good portal haul this time around. And it's tough. It's really tough to do to put a roster together based out of the portal, especially in basketball. So it's a slippery slope for sure. Daniel, one more women's basketball question. Heard people compliment our conditioning. What can you tell us about our strength and conditioning coach? Yeah, Katie Jones is the strength and conditioning coach, and she has done a great job. I mean, obviously, State looks well conditioned, but they're strong. More often than not, they are the stronger team, and that to me tells me that whoever your strength coach is doing a pretty darn good job. She's worked in the NBA. She was I think a G League strength coach in the NBA. So she's worked with men and women. She did a great job at University of Louisville. She was I think an assistant strength coach at University of Louisville. So she knows what she's doing. And I gave her a shout out yesterday on Twitter, and she shouted out Mississippi State's athletic trainer. So shout out to him as well for keeping their legs somehow in six days to have 3 games and come out of it and look like the stronger team was really impressive. And Texas A&M had a week off, and State looked like the stronger team and the more conditioned team down the stretch. So, yeah, she's doing an outstanding job for sure. I'm not sure where she would rank among the nation's best because I just don't know that much about trainers, strength and conditioning coaches across the country, but she's definitely she seems to have been a really good hire for Sam Purcell. Richard, does Jacayla Jordan is Jacayla Jordan able to play next season? She is. She is. She has one more year remaining, and that's going to be the biggest recruiting job for Sam Purcell postseason is to try to bring her back. And listen, she's got a lot more earning opportunities here next year than she would in the WNBA or overseas. I mean, let's just be honest. She's got a chance to make a lot of money here next year, being the star player returning from Mississippi State. And the season she's having, I just don't think she's getting enough recognition. She finally was able to win SEC Player of the Week last week with the job that she did against LSU, but she's just not getting enough recognition, I don't think. Through the first 9 games in SEC play, she has 4 20-point games. She had 24 against LSU, 9 of 17 on 32 minutes. She had 11 against A&M and only 6 against Kentucky. They kind of held her in check, but 11 rebounds against A&M. So she was doing her job, got a double-double. And on the year, 16.7 points, 6 rebounds. She's been, from start to finish, Mississippi State's best player. She's been the most consistent player. She's just been really good. Free throw shooting is off the charts, 80% from the line. She's hitting 35% from three-point range, 46% from the field. She's been outstanding. 56 steals on the year. She's getting a couple a game there. So it would be huge to get her back, the New Orleans native. Let's see what she's got over her career. She has got over 1,000 points at Mississippi State alone, plus what she did at Tulane. She's got a chance to finish out. If she comes back next year, she's got a chance to finish out with, probably 1,600 points at Mississippi State alone, and have a great 4-year career. I mean, she said she already has more points this year than she did in either of the first 2 seasons. She just missed 400 points in the first 2 seasons. She's got 408 already with we're talking about probably 10 plus games remaining this year. So she's going to have an opportunity to have over 500 points probably this season, which is that's a huge season. She's going to be close to the top of the league in scoring this year. So she's had a great year. Nathan Hamilton, Zach Selman said in an interview with Brian Haydad back in November, there would be a facilities master plan in January. Now that's February. What do you think happened? Probably just some logistical things. A lot of things can happen during that time frame. Some things they have to tweak. Maybe the financials aren't working out right now. I mean, there could be hold up on a few things. So I mean, I wouldn't put too much stock in it. I think they're trying to get it right is the main thing. They want to make sure that everything is done correctly, and we will obviously try to figure out if they plan to release that anytime soon or whatever. Next time we are able to talk to Zach. John Chaney, I like Jans, but I have my doubts that he's a good recruiter. There's still some things to prove for him. He's missed out on some players, but got to be a pretty good recruiter to get Josh Hubbard, I think. That was a really big win. And then, keeping guys like Tolu Smith who were getting tampered with, that counts as recruiting. So, I think he's a good recruiter. I think he is. I think one thing about Jans is he is very particular about the guys that he goes after. Even some that he brings in on visits, after he sees them on campus, he might pivot. And that's one of the things with him is he's a very particular guy when it comes to getting his kind of players. So, he's going to have to win some battles, though, for sure. All right, guys. We're going to cut it off there. I appreciate y'all. Another good one. Next week, again, we will probably be moving towards Maroon and White Daily YouTube. So, again, go subscribe to that page, Maroon and White Daily. That's where we will start to have most of our content that we have here is going to be transitioning over to Maroon and White Daily. So I appreciate your guys' support in building this YouTube channel. From the bottom of my heart, it's meant a lot to me. It's really helped us grow. I really appreciate that. But now I ask for you to please move over to Maroon and White Daily and that YouTube channel, and hopefully that's the last move that we have. But I want to remind you to go check us out on maroonandwhitedaily.com, the best source for Mississippi State recruiting and team news. We would love to have you come join us over there. We got a great message board. We got the best recruiting coverage in the business. We got the best Mississippi State basketball coverage out there. So come check us out over there. And don't forget to subscribe to Thunder and Lightning podcast with myself and Brian Haydad for some Mississippi State sports talk 5 days a week there for you on wherever you get your podcasts. So go check me out there as well. All right, guys. Appreciate y'all. Hope you have a great rest of the week, and we will catch you down the road.